planes and plane spotting, trains and rail fanning, HVAC, and much, much more. Welcome to Joe's HVAC Fishing and Rail Fan Productions, where today we are bringing you another video. Hey guys, Joe's HVAC Fishing and Rail Fan Productions, bringing you another video tonight. Today we're going to be doing another aviation explanation, as recently I was asked by a YouTube subscriber, why do Boeing 777s not have winglets? Today we are going to answer that question for you. Here we go. We are going to answer that question. That way you guys can learn more about one of my favorite aircraft of all time, the Boeing 777. Today I was asked a question by a YouTube subscriber, why does the Boeing 777 not have winglets? Today we are going to explain that to you. So when I was asked, why does the 777 not have winglets, I thought of something why, and I knew it was true because I've seen it. One reason that the 777 does not feature such wingtip extensions is the operational limits these would place on the aircraft. The 777-200LR and the 300ER variants of the aircraft have a wingspan of 64.8 meters. This only falls just below the upper limit for the IACO's Aerodome Code E. So, if you guys are wondering what that means, the wingspan is obviously 64 meters, which means the aircraft has a really big wingspan. So the Boeing 777 can't have winglets because the extensions would make the wing too large. Also, the winglets could have a drag output on the aircraft itself. So if you guys are wondering, well, what is drag output? Drag output refers to how much drag an aircraft's wing will generate. And it also depends on the shape of the wing along with other factors, such as the weight of the aircraft in flight, whether or not the flaps and the slats have been lowered to help the aircraft at a lower speed, or if the plane is just that particular model. Which in this case here, I was asked about the 777 in general. And the 777 obviously has a few variants available, such as the Boeing 777-200, which is this aircraft right here, the Boeing 777-200LR, the 200ER, and then we have the 300ER, which is this plane right here, along with the Boeing 777F, which is a freighter variant of the 777-200LR. So now a lot of people ask me, why do the wingtips look like they do on a Boeing 777? So Boeing had a solution for why the 777 couldn't have winglets. So what they did was they made this incredible design. This is called the raked wingtip. And what the raked wingtip does is it minimizes drag on the aircraft while generating lift at the same time. As you can see on my Boeing 777-300ER here, the aircraft has a raked wingtip. And what raked wingtips do, so we're going to take a look at the aircraft from behind and you will see why. Notice how the wingtip is much thinner right at the end. And what that does for the plane is it helps to maximize efficiency of the wing while minimizing drag, while at the same time being able to generate lift just like a winglet. So now if you're wondering, well, why do winglets create so much drag? Well, it also depends on the type of winglet. I'm going to show you a winglet that is most commonly seen on smaller airliners. Here we have my Boeing 737-800. And as you can see here, this aircraft has a blended winglet. So yes, this one does have a stabilizer missing, but we're going to fix that. So the blended winglet is the wing is actually shaped. So when the aircraft was built, the wing of the plane, as you can see here, it actually is the wing itself, but they bend it in the shape of a winglet. So rather than the classic winglets, which can be found on the Boeing 747-400 and the Airbus A330 and 340, the blended winglet is the entire part of the wing being bent into the shape of a winglet. And what that does is, unlike the classic winglets, The blended winglets increase fuel efficiency, while also at the same time helping to minimize drag, but also there is another problem. A lot of you may have been wondering, what about wake turbulence? So a lot of you might know about wake turbulence as the wake of an aircraft that it leaves behind it. So the Boeing 777, for example, that's part of the reason why it has raked wingtips, is so that the vortices that are created on the outside of the wing, the vortices are spread out farther. So when aircraft are directly behind the 777, or when they're maybe a mile or two apart, the aircraft will still be able to land without too much turbulence. Now, a lot of people think of turbulence as bumps in the air, which, yes, that is very true. Bumps in the air is referred to as turbulence. That's where winds and other factors can go against the aircraft and make it wobble like this in flight. And when that happens, it can get pretty uncomfortable for the passengers inside the plane. And when you got turbulence, nobody's happy when that happens. There have been several incidents of mid-air turbulence, especially if you're flying through a storm, which you want to be very careful when flying through a storm. As I just said, they can cause some really bad turbulence. And also, too, if the aircraft wingtip is designed differently, it will have a different effect on how much turbulence the plane will encounter. So smaller aircraft, such as the Boeing 737 here with blended winglets, the aircraft is going to have a higher chance of getting more severe turbulence. Well, if you look at an aircraft like the Boeing 777, for example, you can see how the aircraft has raked wingtips, which therefore help to lower the uncomfortableness from the turbulence. Now, another reason why, as I said before, the Boeing 777 has raked wingtips because the aircraft's wingspan is 64.25 meters, or actually 64.8 meters. And the Boeing 777 is the largest twin-engine long-range airliner in the world. And with it being so large, the aircraft could not have winglets. And that is because of the wingspan being as big as it is. If you were to add those extensions to the wing, it is going to prohibit the performance of the 777, along with the aircraft not having enough room when at the gate. So a lot of you might also ask me, what's the reason for the raked wingtips? Now, a lot of people have explained to me that raked wingtips are used on the Boeing 787 Dreamliner, which on the Boeing 787, the wings are made of carbon fiber. So the carbon fiber is lightweight but very strong, which allows the 787 to have what's called wing flex. Now on a Boeing 777, you're not going to really see that much because the wings are made of different material than that of a 787 Dreamliner. The Boeing 777 has wings made of maybe with some composite materials mixed in, but mostly regular material that's used to make aircraft wings. Now when the Boeing 777 came out, when Boeing realized just how big their plane really was and they couldn't put winglets, that's when they came up with this: raked wingtips. So raked wingtips are a special type of aircraft modification where the tips of the wings are pointed on the ends. So this is called a rake. Now what that does is it allows the aircraft to generate more lift on the tips of the wings. Now, unlike conventional aircraft, such as like the Boeing 737, which features blended winglets, and the Airbus A319-115 variant has the same thing, or even the 114. Now, different types of winglets and different types of wingtips have different effects, such as the Airbus A320 having wingtip fences, along with the Airbus A380, while the A319, A319, 319, 320, and 321 have wingtip fences. Boeing 737 and the Boeing 757, the Flying Pencil, they have blended wingtips. Now, getting back onto our raked no winglets question about the 777, Part of the reason was because the plane is so big with the large wingspan. Also, when the Boeing 777 was being designed, the Boeing 767-400 featured the raked wingtips. Now, the Boeing 767-400 is about the same size as a Boeing 777-200, which this is the 777-200 and this is the 300. So a lot of people have asked me, well, why raked wingtips? Here's the answer. Raked wingtips have been found to be more fuel friendly while at the same time generating lift like a conventional winglet. When a conventional winglet generates lift, it develops a vortice which can cause wake turbulence, as we explained earlier. Now, for those of you who may not have understood me clearly, I'm going to re-explain it. So wake turbulence is the wind in the wake of an aircraft that has just touched down from the engines and the wings. The aircraft engines work by sucking air through a giant fan on the front of the engine, and then that air gets compressed and then sent out behind the plane. Now, what that does is it will create what's called wake turbulence. Now, in wake turbulence with a jet plane, you have to allow a few miles of clearance in between the planes coming into land, because it takes about a few minutes for the wake turbulence to settle. Now, when wake turbulence occurs, that's when an aircraft comes in too close behind a plane that already touched down, because it takes about 3 to 5 minutes for the wake turbulence to clear, sometimes longer, depending on whether or not you're in a windstorm, weather factors, and all other things like that. So here we're going to take a look at the raked wingtip design and why it has such a major advantage over other types of winglets. As you can see here, the raked wingtip is pointed, which means that the wingtip has this point on the end. And what that does is it works similar to a winglet, but instead the air flows over the tip of the rake, and that generates a lot of lift. Well, at the same time, with the wingspan being so large, it also allows no winglets. No wingletless aircraft, or in this case, regular or raked. So basically, if you don't want winglets on your planes, you have a few options. But really what you want to do is you want to weigh out your options. A fence tip on the wingtip fence, you've got two tiny little winglets. They are so tiny that they can't even be referred to as a winglet. Now, a lot of you might ask, why does the Airbus A318, the 320 family, have wingtip fences? Well, it depends on the variant of the aircraft, such as like the A319 132, A320 232, and the A321 231. They feature the wingtip fence. Now, wingtip fences aren't quite as efficient because they do tend to create quite a bit of drag, which is useful to help the aircraft land at a slower flight speed, but unfortunately it may not be good for bigger aircraft, the only exception being the Airbus A380. So raked wingtips can also be used as a substitute for if you have a really large plane, such as like the Boeing 777 and the Boeing 787 Dreamliner and the Boeing 747-8. I'm going to show you the Boeing 747-100 demonstrator, which has conventional wings without winglets. Here is the Boeing 747-100, which features conventional wings. As you can see, the wings are very thick and there is no wingtip edge. Well, if you look at a 777 or the 747-8, which doesn't have winglets like the 747-100 demonstrator shown here, if you look carefully, you'll see this is a conventional wing. So, chances of wake turbulence are pretty high on the older 747s. So I hope this answered your question. Whichever one of you asked me that question. I don't usually like to give out names on YouTube unless they absolutely want me to do it. Other than that, guys, I usually do not give out names on YouTube. So anyway, whichever subscriber you were, I hope that answered your question. And I hope that gave you a little bit of information there. And we will see you on our next video.